My name is Steve Keaton, 36 years old, a director at a private bank in San Diego. My life before marriage was structured, predictable everything. I did fit neatly into routines and the kind of life where even surprises came, scheduled on a calendar. I wasn't unhappy, but something was missing. A spark, a warmth, a reason to breathe deeper. Instead of just moving from one task to the next. Then Lana walked into my life like a fresh ocean breeze cutting through. Stale office air. She was 32, an interior designer with a laugh that felt like sunlight and a smile warm, enough to melt a frozen heart. Within months of knowing her, my world shifted from spreadsheets and financial projections to late-night talks, shared breakfasts, and the kind of love that makes you forget how quiet life used to be. We'd been married only 6 months, still wrapped in the soft glow of a honeymoon haze. Every night she would curl up beside me and whisper in that gentle, teasing voice of hers, "Steve, one day I want a real home. A backyard, flowers, maybe even a dog and kids, someday." Those were the moments that made my chest feel full, like life had finally expanded past work and routine. We lived in a small seaside apartment, cozy and filled with the sound of waves. I loved it, but Lana, she dreamed bigger. So when she found a house online, she insisted we go see it. That Sunday afternoon was one of those perfect Southern California days, some warm breeze, sunlight everywhere, the kind of day where everything feels possible. "Honey, this is the perfect place," she said, practically vibrating with excitement as we drove. "It has a backyard, it's close to the ocean, and the price is actually reasonable." I reached over and squeezed her hand across the gear shift, smiling. "If you love it, I'll go with the flow. But we check everything carefully first, okay? No decisions, just because your heart is glowing too. Bright. I'd always been the practical one. Lana was the dreamer. And somehow the balance worked. When we pulled up in front of the house, honestly, it was nothing special. 2-story, older, plain white exterior, red-tiled roof, about 20 minutes outside downtown. Definitely not the modern, luxurious home I had imagined she'd want. But the moment Lana saw it, her eyes sparkled. "Steve, look! Those huge windows. Just imagine how much light the place gets." Her excitement made even the dullest house look charming, and I still had no idea that this was the day everything would change, the day my secret ability to understand French would reveal the truth Lana never thought I could hear. Before I continue, tell, from which place are you watching this story right now? Please subscribe and like the video for motivation. The Realtor, a tall man with carefully styled hair and a bright, practiced smile, greeted us at the gate. "Bonjour. Welcome," he said cheerfully. Lana lit up immediately. "Oh, you speak French? That's perfect. I studied it in college," she said, switching fluently into the language with a confidence that surprised me. Kept my expression neutral, because unlike Lana believed, I understood every word. She didn't know that my grandmother, born and raised in Lyon, had taught me French from the moment I could speak. She didn't know I'd spent summers in France with her. She didn't know that I used it often at work when dealing with international clients. To Lana, I was just Steve, the bank guy who barely mastered Spanish. She had no idea. I understood French perfectly, and I had never corrected her, and not because I wanted to deceive her, but because there was never a moment where it seemed important. But that day, fate decided it was important. The Realtor unlocked the door and let us inside. The house was older, yes, but it had charm. Wooden floors, tall windows, sunlight spilling everywhere like a warm blanket. Lana clasped her hands together. "It's even better inside." I inhaled slowly, taking in the smell of old wood, fresh paint, and something else. Maybe hope. The Realtor turned to Lana and said something in French, smiling politely. "Alors, c'est la maison que vous voulez vraiment? Vous êtes sûr que votre mari peut se permettre cela?" Translation: "So is this really the house you want? Are you sure your husband can actually afford something like this?" Lana giggled softly, brushing her hair back. She responded quickly. "Oh, Steve? Oui, oui, il peut payer. Il n'a aucune idée de combien cela m'importe. Et heureusement, il ne comprend pas un mot de français." "Oh, Steve? Yes, yes, he can pay. He has no idea how much this matters to me, and luckily, he doesn't understand a word of French." I froze for a split second. It wasn't insulting. It wasn't cruel. But something about the confidence in her tone, the certainty that I was clueless. It stung. Still, I stayed silent. We moved into the living room. Lana's eyes were sparkling. She looked like a little kid seeing Disneyland for the first time. She ran her fingers over the kitchen counter, peeked into the pantry, inspected the backyard through the sliding glass door, then the Realtor lowered his voice again, still in French. Et vous êtes sûr qu'il acceptera de payer le prix total? Les maris deviennent nerveux avec des dépenses soudaines. And you're sure he'll agree to pay the full price? Husbands get nervous about sudden expenses. Lana lifted her chin. Confident. Je sais comment le convaincre. Il dit toujours qu'il est rationnel, mais il m'adore. S'il me voit heureuse, il signera n'importe quoi. I know how to convince him. He says he's rational, but he adores me. If he sees me happy, he'll sign anything. My stomach tightened, not anger, shift. A silent crack. Was that how she saw me? Someone who would sign anything just because she smiled? I didn't mind making Lana happy. I loved making her happy. But the idea that she could manipulate me so confidently, it left a bitter aftertaste. Still, I kept my face calm, pretending I understood nothing, but inside, a storm had started brewing. When Lana turned back to me and said sweetly, "Honey, what do you think? Isn't it perfect?" I forced a smile. Let's see the rest first, little did she know. I had heard everything. We continued the tour, moving down a small hallway with creaking wooden floors. I walked slightly behind Lana and the Realtor, watching them interact. She was radiant, energetic, pointing at every little detail, like she had already mentally moved, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying her French words over and over. He adores me. He'll sign anything, he doesn't understand a word. Wasn't furious, not yet, but something inside me had shifted. It was like realizing the foundation of your house had a crack you never noticed before. Lana peeked into the first bedroom. "Steve, look. This could be a guest room. It's nice," I said calmly. The Realtor chimed in with his sales pitch. "This is one of the brightest rooms in the house. The windows face the sunrise." Lana spun around, excited. "Imagine waking up here." I smiled back, but it didn't reach my eyes. She didn't notice. She was too swept up in her fantasy of the perfect home. As we moved to the next room, the Realtor asked her something quietly in French again. "Vous êtes sûr de vouloir qu'il paie le plein prix? Il y a des options pour négocier, mais..." "Are you sure you want him to pay full price? There are ways to negotiate, but..." Lana shook her head immediately. "Non, non. Je veux cette maison, et vite. Plus vite ce sera fait, mieux ce sera. No, I want this house. And fast. The sooner it's done, the better." That sentence made my stomach twist a little tighter. Why the rush? Why the insistence? Why the confidence that I would just blindly sign? Her voice, normally sweet to me, now felt sharp in my ears. We reached the master bedroom. It was nicer. Airy, modernized, big windows with a wide view of the street. Lana walked straight to the corner, staring out with a dreamy smile. "Steve, can't you imagine us here?" I walked next to her. "Maybe." She frowned slightly at my lukewarm tone, but quickly hid it with a bright smile. The Realtor stepped back a little, giving us space, but he wasn't done talking. In French, he said softly to Lana, "Vous savez, si votre mari hésite, je peux peut-être vous aider à le pousser un peu. Les hommes n'aiment pas décevoir leurs femmes pendant les visites de maison. Ils signent souvent pour impressionner. You know, if your husband hesitates, I can help push him a little. Men don't like disappointing their wives during house tours. They often sign just to impress." Lana laughed, genuinely laughed. "Peut-être. Steve est comme ça. Mais laissez-moi essayer d'abord. Je le connais bien. Maybe Steve is like that, but let me try first. I know him well." It felt like a pin slowly pressing deeper into my chest. Not the words themselves, but how easily she said them, how sure she was of her control. She turned to me suddenly, switching back to English with that sugary tone I loved and now feared. "Baby, what do you think of the master bedroom? Isn't it perfect for us?" I nodded slowly. "It's nice. I just need to think about..." Before I even finished my sentence, her smile faltered for a split second. Just a flicker, the kind you'd miss if you weren't watching closely. Then it reappeared. "Oh, of course. You think logically, I know," she said with a soft laugh, patting my chest. "But trust me, this house is right." Her hand lingered on my shirt, warm and gentle. But for the first time since I met her, Her touch didn't comfort me. We walked toward the hallway that led to the backyard. Lana raced ahead excitedly, sliding the glass door open. The sunlight flooded in, and for a moment I almost forgot everything. "It's perfect," Lana said, stepping onto the grass. I followed, looking at the small but cozy yard. A couple of trees, enough space for a dog, maybe a garden, yes. It was nice, but the joy I should have felt was clouded by the storm inside me. She thought I didn't understand, thought she could guide me like a puppet with strings made of smiles and sweetness. She thought I would sign anything without knowing her real intentions, but I was listening, and I understood every single word. Lana walked around the backyard like she already owned the place. She stretched her arms out, spun in a slow circle, letting the sunlight hit her face. If someone had seen her in that moment, they'd think she was the happiest woman alive. This yard. "Steve, can't you imagine us grilling here? Maybe hosting friends? And look, space for a dog," she said, bending down to touch the grass. I nodded, but my mind was still tangled in the French conversations from inside. Stood near the sliding door, letting the breeze brush against me. The house was beautiful in its own way, yes, but now it was wrapped with something sour. The idea of being managed rather than partnered. With the realtor stepped out behind me, his shoes crunching softly against the grass. He seemed more relaxed outdoors, like this yard was his favorite selling point. He switched to English again, playing the friendly professional. "As you can see, the backyard gets sun almost all day, and it's very private. A lot of couples really appreciate that." Lana turned toward him, smiling politely, but her eyes quickly flicked to me, gauging my reaction. Gave none. She walked back toward me and slipped her arm around my waist. "Honey, I really want this place." I looked down at her. "Why this house specifically, Lana?" "There were others you liked." She hesitated, just a fraction of a second. But I caught it well. "It just feels right," she said quickly. "The light, the backyard, the space, and the neighborhood is safe." I studied her face. The words were right, but the tone, slightly off. Too rehearsed. Too eager. She wasn't lying, but she wasn't telling the whole truth either. The realtor glanced between us, sensing the moment. Then, thinking I still understood nothing, he leaned slightly toward her and murmured in French, "Parlez-lui maintenant. S'il sent que vous hésitez, il va devenir plus difficile à convaincre. Talk to him now. If he feels you hesitate, he'll become harder to convince." Lana nodded subtly, then looked up at me with her sweetest expression, the same expression that made me fall for her months ago. "Steve, listen," she said softly. "I know you think logically. I know you want to analyze everything. But sometimes a home isn't about numbers. It's about what feels right." Her voice trembled gently, a controlled tremble, one meant to soften me. "I want a place where we can grow, where we don't have to worry about cramped space or noisy neighbors. A place that feels like ours. And this house, Steve, when I walked in, I just knew." She rested her hand on my chest again. That gesture used to melt me today. It made me evaluate her more closely. I touched her hand, but instead of covering it lovingly, I gently moved it aside. "I hear you, Lana, but it's a big decision. I can't rush into it." Her smile faltered again. For a split second, a tiny flash on something in her eyes sharpened. Disappointment? Annoyance? Fear? Then she quickly forced the shine back into her expression. "Oh, of course," she said with a soft laugh. "I'm not rushing you. I just want us to find our home." But the realtor wasn't done thinking I still didn't understand French. He leaned closer to her and whispered, "S'il refuse, je peux vous aider à le convaincre. Nous avons des techniques pour cela, des offres limitées, des rappels subtils, ce genre de choses. If he refuses, I can help you convince him. We have methods for that. Limited time offers, subtle pressure, things like that." Lana nodded lightly, but her face tightened for half a heartbeat. And in that moment, the truth hit me like cold water. She wanted this house desperately, enough to strategize, enough to manipulate the situation, enough to rely on a stranger's tactics. Why? What was so special about this house? Why not the others? Why was she so certain I'd blindly follow her lead? The realtor clapped his hands lightly. "Shall we go back inside?" "I can show you the paperwork and answer any questions." Lana looked at me with that hopeful, glittering gaze. "Steve, can we just to see?" I smiled calmly, hiding the storm behind my ribs. Sure, I said. Let's see everything, because now I wasn't just touring a house. I was searching for the truth. Lana never meant for me to hear. We stepped back inside, the cool air of the living room brushing against us as the door slid shut behind. Lana walked ahead with a bounce in her step, but I could see the tension in her shoulders now, tiny, almost invisible, but there. The realtor led us to the dining area, where a small round table had been neatly arranged with a folder, brochures, and a glossy printed sheet showing the price of the house. Lana immediately sat down, smoothing her dress as if preparing for a negotiation. She had already planned out in her head, stayed standing for a moment scanning the room slowly. The place was charming, cozy, warm, but the sweetness of the environment didn't match the sourness growing quietly inside. The realtor opened the folder and began his pitch. So this home has been on the market for only 5 days. There's been a lot of interest, but Lana cut in gently. I told you, Steve, it's a great opportunity. She wasn't even pretending to wait for the financial details. That alone raised red flags. I took a seat across from her, my expression unreadable. The realtor continued. The seller is hoping for a smooth, quick process. They've refused low offers, but for the right buyer, in French, under his breath, if vous êtes une candidate sérieuse, avec votre mari, c'est presque assuré. And you're a serious candidate. With your husband, it's practically guaranteed. Lana gave a tiny, smug nod, the kind she'd never show me. Then she spoke softly back to him. Je veux conclure cela bientôt, avant que d'autres n'essaient de nous devancer. I want this finalized soon, before someone else tries to outbid us. Her urgency. It wasn't normal. I leaned back. Can we talk about the neighborhood, schools, resale value, taxes, renovation costs? I want the whole picture. Lana's smile tightened. Steve, honey, that's all secondary. Look at the house. Look at the space. I raised an eyebrow. Secondary? She inhaled sharply through her nose. I'm very faint, but I caught it. A sign of impatience, the realtor jumped in to rescue her. It's a very stable neighborhood, sir. And as for... But he didn't stay in English long. Turning to Lana, he said again in French, Laissez-moi parler. Trop de détails vont l'effrayer. Nous devons le garder concentré sur l'émotion. Let me speak. Too many details will scare him off. We need to keep him focused on the emotion. Lana nodded once, clenching her fingers together. Emotion, that was the key word. She wanted me to feel, not think, and the realtor was helping her. Why? Why were they aligned so easily? I watched them both carefully. The glances, the subtle nods, the unspoken communication happening right in front of me. I folded my arms. What's the seller's situation? The realtor hesitated. For the first time, he looked unsure. Personal reasons. They want to move quickly. In a hurry? I pressed. Yes, well, something like that. He avoided my eyes. Lana quickly interjected. Steve, does it matter? People move for dozens of reasons. Exactly, I replied. So which one is it? She forced a laugh. You're overthinking. Baby, we don't need to interrogate every detail. I do, I said quietly. It's a big purchase. The air tightened. Lana exchanged a swift look with the realtor. A look she clearly didn't want me to catch. But I did. Their eyes met for half a second, a silent communication, a shared understanding. My jaw tightened. The realtor cleared his throat. We can always discuss the seller's situation later. For now, if you're comfortable, we can go over the pricing options. He slid the glossy sheet toward us. Dis-moi. Price stared at me. Bold, expensive, higher than what Lana had made it sound like. My eyes narrowed. This isn't reasonable. Lana leaned forward instantly. It is, Steve. This area is expensive. You know that. But you told me it was lower, I said quietly. She froze, just for a heartbeat, then pasted on a smile. I meant reasonable for what we're getting. A practiced answer. The kind you prepare when you expect resistance. The realtor moved closer, offering a sympathetic smile. It is a competitive listing. Many couples find it irresistible. Then, switching to French, si vous hésitez encore, je peux créer un sentiment d'urgence. Les gens signent plus vite lorsqu'ils pensent qu'ils peuvent perdre quelque chose. If he hesitates more, I can create a sense of urgency. People sign faster when they think they might lose something. Lana nodded again. Her fingers trembled slightly, not with anxiety, but with determination. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. And then, for the first time, Lana's voice held a sharpness I'd never heard before. Steve, please, let's not drag this out. Isn't this what we wanted? A home? A future? Her tone wasn't sweetness now, it was pressure. I met her eyes. Lana, what's going on? Why this house? Why so fast? She blinked, taken aback. The realtor looked suddenly uncomfortable. And then Lana whispered, something barely audible. But I heard it clearly. Because we don't have time. Steve, I stared at her, those words. They felt like a door creaking open to a room full of secrets. Don't have time for what? I asked quietly. She swallowed hard, her face draining of color. And in that silence, I realized, whatever the truth was, it wasn't about the house. The room suddenly felt smaller. The sunlight coming through the windows wasn't warm anymore. It felt harsh, exposing, like a spotlight, shining directly on Lana's trembling. Hansdot, the realtor, sensed the shift instantly. His smile faded. His eyes darted between us, unsure whether to continue the pitch or quietly disappear. But Lana, she kept staring at the documents on the table, not reading them, not touching them, just staring, as if the numbers could somehow shield her from what was coming next. Lana, I repeated more firmly this time. What do you mean we don't have time? She didn't answer. The realtor coughed softly, trying to regain control. Perhaps we can revisit the financial conversation later. Lana held up a hand, silencing him. That alone shocked me. She never acted like that in public, never commanded a moment so sharply. Lana, I said again, slowly. Talk to me, finally. She looked up. Her eyes glistened, but not with tears. With fear. A fear I had never seen in her. Fear she was desperately trying to hide. Steve, can we please discuss this later at home? No, I said gently but firmly. We're here now, and you're pushing hard for something without telling me why. She opened her mouth, then closed it. The realtor stepped back, pretending to fiddle with his folder, but his ears were clearly tuned into every syllable. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. Lana, what's going on? She squeezed her hands together until her knuckles turned white. I can't explain it here. Why? Her voice cracked, barely audible. Because you'll look at me differently. A chill slid down my spine. Differently? How the realtor suddenly interrupted, and in French, of course, and making everything worse. Madame, si vous attendez trop longtemps, vous risquez de perdre la maison, et votre plan pourrait échouer. Madame, if you wait too long, you risk losing the house, and your plan might fail. Plan. The moment he said it, Lana shot him a vicious, panicked look. A look filled with warning. A look that said, shut up. But it was too late. A plan? My jaw clenched. Plan? What plan? Lana shook her head, her voice trembling. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I stared at her, long, deep searching. Lana, I understand French. Silence, absolute. Suffocating silence, her face drained completely. The realtor's mouth fell open. Oh, all the color, all the composure, all the confidence Lana had earlier, vanished. You what? She whispered. I understand French, I repeated calmly, coldly. Everything you two have been saying since we walked through the door. I heard it. The room felt like it tilted. Lana looked at me like her world had just cracked open. She reached out instinctively, as if to touch my hand, but stopped halfway when she saw my expression. Steve, I didn't mean what? I cut in quietly. Didn't mean to manipulate me? Didn't mean to rush me? Didn't mean to push a sale through behind my back? Or didn't mean to let the realtor talk about methods to pressure me? Tears filled her eyes now, real ones. Not the controlled shimmer she used. Earlier, the realtor took a small step backward, hands partially raised. Sir, I assure you I didn't intend. I shot him a look. Not now. He closed his mouth instantly. Lana wiped her eyes, voice breaking. Steve, please. I wasn't trying to manipulate you. I need this house. You need it, I repeated. Lana, why? What aren't you telling me? Her breathing grew uneven, then finally she whispered, because someone else knows where we live. A shiver ran down my spine. Leaned closer, heart pounding. What do you mean? Her voice quivered. Something inside her cracked open. Steve, I didn't tell you everything about my past. What past? She looked at me with haunted eyes. The kind of eyes that carried secrets she'd buried deep. I thought I could move on. I thought he was gone. But he found me again. Who? I demanded. She tremblingly exhaled the name like it burned her tongue. My ex-husband. My heart dropped. Lana's voice broke completely. He found our address. And last week, he tried to contact me. The realtor stiffened. He clearly knew more than he should, Lana continued, tears streaming now. That's why I want this house. Not for the windows or the yard or the neighborhood. She looked at me desperately. I want it because we need to disappear. Before he shows up, everything inside me went still because this wasn't manipulation for luxury. This wasn't greed. This wasn't ego. This was fear. Deep, suffocating fear, and she had been hiding it from me. The truth hung in the air like a heavy storm cloud, so thick, so sharp it felt like the walls of the house themselves were listening. Lana was crying openly now, trembling, gripping the edge of the table as if the truth she'd finally confessed had taken all the strength from her body. My ex-husband, he wasn't just cruel, Steve, she whispered. He was dangerous, manipulative, controlling, and when I left him 2 years ago, I didn't do it peacefully. I ran, I hid, I changed my life. She shook her head slowly, tears dripping onto her hands. I told you he wasn't in the picture anymore. I told you he moved overseas, but that was a lie. I didn't know where he was. I only knew he wanted to find me. Every word felt like a stab, not because she lied, but because she was suffering alone. Last week, she continued, her voice barely audible, I got a message from an unknown number with a picture of our apartment building, our front door. My blood went cold. He knows where we live, she whispered, and that means we can't stay. We can't risk it. I didn't want to scare you. I didn't want you to think I brought danger into your life. I thought if I handled it on my own, if I found a house quickly, we could disappear into a safer neighborhood. Before he made a move, she looked at me, through her tears, guilt and desperation mixing in her eyes. She looked at me through her tears, guilt and desperation mixing in her eyes. That's why I wanted this house. Steve, not for luxury, not to manipulate you, I needed to feel safe again. I needed us to be safe. For a moment, everything inside me froze, not from fear, from the weight of realizing how deeply she had been battling this alone. The realtor stood awkwardly in the corner, pale and silent. He clearly knew more than he admitted. Perhaps Lana had privately hinted at the danger. I exhaled slowly. Long controlled, Lana, I said quietly. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Her voice cracked. Because I didn't want you to think I was broken, or that you married someone with baggage. I wanted our marriage to be perfect, clean, new. She sobbed harder, and I didn't want you to get hurt. Because of my past, something inside me softened, painfully, powerfully. I stepped toward her. She flinched slightly, expecting anger. Instead, I gently lifted her chin so she could look at me. Lana, I said softly, marriage isn't about showing only the perfect parts. It's about trusting each other with the darkest ones, too. You should have told me. Not because I'd be angry, but because you shouldn't have carried this fear alone. She broke completely, then were falling into my arms, sobbing into my chest, apologizing over and over. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I held her close, one hand on her back, the other cupping her head. It's okay, I whispered. We'll handle this together. Behind us, the realtor cleared his throat. Should I give you both some privacy? No, I said, turning calmly. We're finishing this. Lana looked up, confused. Steve? I placed both hands gently on her shoulders. We are not buying this house out of fear. We're not running blindly because someone threatens us. If we move, it'll be to a place we choose together. Not because your past is chasing you. But Steve, I brushed a tear from her cheek. We're calling the police. We're increasing the building security. We're getting a restraining order. And if we move, it'll be to the right home. Not one picked under pressure. The realtor nodded slowly, respectfully. That's a wise decision. Lana stared at me, eyes wide. But for the first time since the truth came out, there was hope behind them. Real hope, I thought. You'd be terrified, she whispered. I am, I admitted. But that doesn't change how I feel about you. Then I said the words she needed more than anything. You're not alone anymore, Lana, not now. Not ever. She melted against me again, crying quietly, not from fear this time, but from relief. I kissed her forehead gently. Let's go home, I said. We'll face this together. Let's go home, I said. We'll face this together. We walked out of the house hand in hand, the realtor watching silently. As the door closed behind us, the sunlight outside felt different now, not bright, not warm, but steady like a new beginning, forming in the cracks of a terrifying truth. And as we stepped off that porch, I realized something. The house didn't matter. The lies didn't matter. The past didn't matter. What mattered was the woman beside me and the future we would protect side by side.